Good mo- Can you hear me? Okay. I think everything is good. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to my channel where I help you apply the Bible to all of life's craziness. I know it's Saturday morning. I know everybody probably had a late Friday evening, but this was an amazing opportunity to get someone's testimony on something that I frequently talk about on this channel, and that is marriage and the ups and downs of marriage. And frankly, marriage is losing out in these streets among young Christians, young singles. And I thought it would be an amazing opportunity to talk to someone who has actually gone through a marriage horror story and see how he responded. Let me see. Okay, he's coming up now. Let me see if I can get him. Anthony,
Hey, what's up, man? Can you
what's
hear
going on? Good morning.
me? Good morning, bro.
How's the sound?
Yeah, I got you comes in my headphones so I can like really hear you. So I
Right.
can hear you pretty good.
Okay, and I can hear you excellent. All right.
Perfect.
Now you have an amazing camera. I need to just get this.
This is just my iPad, man.
Oh, this is your iPad. See, look.
Yeah.
I try to be fancy with it, but we gotta get better.
Yeah, what app are
Anyway,
you using? This is like really cool.
Ecamm Live.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah.
So I'd ask, thank you for joining and thank you for being willing to share this uh, ordeal that, I mean, I don't know, I guess you'll explain it, but you might still be going through, but and to some degree, but it lasts for some years. And I think your testimony would be amazing for the viewers who, are afraid of marriage and who believe that marriage is dead and people don't believe in it. And, trust me, in these YouTube streets, it's, it's crazy out here.
Yeah,
So
man.
I'll go ahead and open us up in prayer and then we'll get started. Okay.
Sure.
Ready?
Yep.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for this opportunity to come together and just fellowship, Lord, and have an opportunity for our brother Anthony to share his testimony, Lord. We ask that whoever needs to hear this, whoever is just lacking hope as it regards to marriage or relationships, and we just ask that you allow this to touch their hearts and speak to their soul, and allow them to be open to your redemptive power and your safety, Lord, and wisdom, Lord. So we just ask that you bless this conversation and just bless my brother Anthony and everything he's gone through and going through, Lord. And we just thank you for his health and safety, Lord. And we just ask that you bless also anybody who might be watching this video. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
In Jesus' name. Amen.
All right. So Anthony and I have been friends for, man, going on like 5 years now. We
Yeah,
met
man.
at
Time
work,
fly fast.
and yeah, man, we just been real cool. And one day I was at work, and I don't know, we were just chatting, or ran into each other, and he just laid this story on me, and I was like, oh wow, okay. Uh, but I figured this would be amazing to share. So, Anthony, uh, what happened? I don't know where you want to start.
Yeah. So like I'll start it off with saying what is that? There's that um that passage from Job,
Okay.
Job
Oh, Job.
3
Oh, Lord. Here
10
we
and
go.
25, right?
So wait, I'm
And
sorry.
he
What
was
was it?
like,
What was it?
Job 3 and 25.
Job 3:25. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, and he was like, for the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me.
Mm,
And, for me, uh, it was, just like separation from family, divorce, the whole everything that comes in that package. Um, and I'll say why, that scripture, that verse kind of comes to mind for me because, growing up, I grew up, you know, pretty much a single family home. I was raised primarily by, really by my mom. Um,
mm,
so I really didn't have my dad like in the home, and that's not what I wanted. Uh, the environment or what I saw for like my family, just marriage, having family, kids, everything like that. So when divorce happened, it really impacted me based off of like my childhood, things like that. Again, I never wanted um, something like that to happen, or like my kids to grow up like that.
And so you have two kids.
Yes,
Okay. And
yeah, two kids from that marriage. Yeah,
okay. Yeah. I was so one of my YouTube mentors, Alan Parr, did a video about how divorce affected him growing up. His uh, parents' divorce, and he gets real deep. And I knew that divorce affected uh, kids to a greater degree, but I didn't know it was that deep. So yeah, it could be very destructive. So you were married, and how long were you married before uh, things kind of went south?
yeah, it was like nine, almost 10 years, man.
Okay, so you're married, everything's going well, started popping out kids,
Yeah,
um, and almost reaching the legally 7 years. 7+ years is a long-term marriage, or
yeah,
that's the bar. So you're past the short-term marriage legal definition, and things are just going. And then what happened?
yeah. I mean, in my opinion, it's really now that I look at it in hindsight, it's maybe just like marriage stuff. Like everybody, you have to really think about when two people, come together from two different like ways of life. And I think we always, a lot of times, we focus on, how we're similar, but we also have to consider, how we're different. Um, I mean, like for instance, right here, like we're two black men having a conversation. Uh, but like our experiences and how we grew up could be completely different.
Right,
And
right.
I think that it's good that we recognize where our similarities and how we can come together. But we also that means we have to figure out how to work with each other in the areas that we're different. And I think that's where arguments and things come up, or disagreements, or just different perspectives of things come up in marriage, because again you're two people. You grew up in your household, I grew up in my household, and we have to figure out how to now have a household together with those two different mindsets.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I think sometimes people may think like, oh well, there's no, yeah, there's no perfect marriage, and there's no perfect relationship, but that's actually to be expected. So I think if you don't have that understanding, then uh, you can find yourself on a path that leads to divorce. And in my situation, I think that's what happened.
Mm. And so, from my understanding, uh, and I guess you can elaborate to the degree that you feel comfortable, but like, did how did the divorce start? Like, how did the divorce proceedings start? Like, was it um, a conversation you guys had that was like, all right, we just need to, uh, we should just separate? Because from my recollection, it was a little bit more
Yeah, kind of
contentious than
crazy.
that.
Yeah, yeah, it was. So like we weren't having conversations about divorce. It was more like needing space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I wasn't in favor of that either. But like after a while, sometimes arguments can wear on you, and you just kind of be like, okay, like fine, let's try it this way. So that resulted in, her moving out of state,
Just
and it'd be like, all right,
randomly, just kind of. Did she tell you she was leaving, or she just left?
no, she ended up we had conversations about it beforehand, and it was like, I don't want this to happen. I'm not in favor of this, but fine. And it started off where, I was told that it would happen like she's gonna go for like the summertime. And I want to say like a few days later, it comes back. Well, I'm thinking more like maybe in the fall, no, in the spring.
She kept
I'm
pushing it
like,
back.
yeah, I'm like, okay, but you just said summertime. And then next thing I know, leaving next week. And I was like, next week? Fine, whatever.
Oh, so she
So,
told you at the end of the summer she wanted to leave, and then she was like, "Okay, no, maybe in the spring I'm going to leave." But then she hit you with, "Next week I'm out."
yeah, yeah.
Okay, and did she leave by herself?
Say it again.
Did she leave by herself?
No, kids too, bro.
So you guys are, having some tough arguments, some, back and forth, and you decide you think that separation is necessary, and she basically just leaves and takes the kids
Yep.
and goes far away. Right.
Yeah, like far away.
So when she left and took the kids, you know, what kind of where were you at? What headspace were you at? Like, what was your immediate reaction?
Like it was at a time where um I think a lot of stuff was really not making sense, and I was trying to make sense of like just everything. Whether that be marriage, life in general, how everything's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that initial like when she first left with the kids and everything, I'm like, what's happening? Like what's going on in my life?
Mm-hmm.
I thought, that eventually she would come back because again, right at this point in time, we're not really talking about divorce. It's more like space.
Oh,
We had
oh, so this really kind of blindsided you.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
uh, yeah. So I'm thinking like, all right, so fine, you get some space, maybe, you will, get clear some things up and things will get resolved. So I would like shoot text messages after a while and, just kind of not getting the response that I would anticipate. Like, because again, at this point, we're not discussing divorce.
mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes some of the responses back seem kind of more colder than I would have thought.
Mm.
So now what turns into, um, obviously 1 month goes by. Actually, I'll go back. Let me back up before that. So they leave, and that's what I'm saying. It seems like like I go back to what I feared started to come upon me. They leave, and now I'm getting like notices in the mail talking about that my mortgage is about to significantly increase, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I think it went up by like $800 or something. I'm like, I can't afford this. 'Cause we had bought a new house at the time,
Oh, okay,
and
okay.
so house gets built and everything like that, but the property taxes and everything aren't factored in. It's really just factored in for the land and not like the house and stuff like that. So
They got me like that too, bro. They,
yeah,
listen, that
don't
escrow
tell
account.
y'all this.
Listen, if you are buying a house, that escrow account, bro, put some money in that thing. Like
Yes,
just
yes,
start stacking. Listen, just don't buy clothes. Skip a couple of dinners or two. And just put that money in that escrow account. Trust me, when them taxes
yes.
get assessed, your stuff is gonna shoot up like crazy. So I know what you mean. So she leaves, takes the kids. You're alone. You get the hit with this increase. Oh wow! So all these things just happen at one time.
Yeah, like I'm getting notices. I think I got a notice from like a credit card company that they were about to sue me because again, even before this time, like, finances also, contribute to like arguments. Like let's
Right,
just
right.
like be real. You
I
got to
think
remember
that's
this.
one of the top two reasons for divorce is like finances and sex.
Yeah, yeah. So like finances was it was in trouble. Like we were making it by, but like that was really it. It was kind of like almost like house poor.
Mm,
So paying
yep.
all these bills, I'm using credit cards to like, pay for stuff
Yeah.
that's necessary.
Yeah.
And again, so now they're gone and I'm getting all this stuff coming in. And it's just like me in this house that's really for like a full family
Right.
and it's just silence. And that
Silence
part
from
feels like
who?
really silence in the house.
Oh, okay.
Like you go from a house that's alive, everybody's in there, kids are playing, like just the sound of a full like family living there to just
Nothing.
quiet, nothing.
Wow.
And that silence was like driving me crazy, man. And like all this stuff is coming in. I said, now I'm getting letters talking about mortgage is spiking up. Credit card companies is coming after me because, now I can't pay the credit cards back. Um, so I'm in debt. Um, family is miles and miles and miles away. Uh, and I'm like, what's happening? How did I get here? Like, I don't believe this. I I was just in disbelief, man.
Mm, yeah.
I started feeling like all of that quietness and loneliness kind of like just closing in on me.
Mm, mm. Yeah. One I have a video on the channel that talks about like why like there was a Harvard Health Institute study that did like hundreds of thousands of married couples. It was like 2.1 at like two times the rate. Men that are widowers die within a year of their wife dying. And a lot of times men's health deteriorates greatly when they or even when their wives go into the hospital for a time. And one of the reasons why health deteriorates and men just kind of get depressed. They get depressed. They get isolated. They get their health choices go down the drain. So I mean, this channel is a big proponent of marriage for not only biblical spiritual reasons, but I mean, when God said it's not good for man to be alone, let me make a helper for him. I mean, that's what marriage is. And so it's interesting to hear that just the silence, just you had a lively home, children running around, your children running around, and now they're gone. And kind of, so you didn't consent to the children leaving. Right.
No, I mean, I guess I didn't want them to leave, but technically I did. And
You did what you mean?
like, yeah, I basically agreed to it
How?
because again, I'm working all day. So she was like, I want to take the kids with me. This is how like those initial conversations started off with, well, this will be something that, if you want some space like that, maybe we can consider this like in the summertime
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Got you. Okay, okay,
because
okay.
school is out. Like, okay, it'll just be like a summer vacation or something. So when those dates started rolling back, I'm like, how is this making sense? But I already pretty much agreed to it from like the summertime standpoint. So now it's like, what do you mean you want to do this in April? How is this now working? Like, you know, next week. When did you even get tickets? And
Right, right. Um, and
but
so
that's why I'm like, I ultimately, yeah, and it's one of the things that I regret. Like, ultimately, I did agree to it.
yeah, there might have been some manipulation going there as far as because seems like you agreed to it, but it was not under the pretenses that you were. I mean, you agreed to them maybe leaving with her for a short amount of time in the
And then
summertime
coming
and
back,
coming back, and then leaving and not coming back is totally different. So you wouldn't have
yeah,
agreed to that. Uh,
no, absolutely not.
okay, so she leaves. House is empty. Life is crashing down. The biggest fear you had for marriage happens. Uh,
Yeah.
it's funny how sometimes that happens. The things you fear the most happen. But what did you do next?
So I started trying to assess like the finances and things like that. Like, what do I need to do um, at this point? So, like, we started to sell the house.
Yeah.
Um, Ended up putting it on the market. Still in communication with her about it. So, like, she's aware that that's what's happening, and so forth. Uh, and even that, like, I'm pretty much prepping the house by myself. Like, I'm I'm staging the house. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Trying to make sure things are cleaned up because as I go to work, that means people are going to be coming in. Then in the midst of all this, the refrigerator goes out. And then in Florida, you can't sell a house without a refrigerator.
Right. 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 Let me just fix this. Gotta get this. Go ahead. Okay. So refrigerator goes out. You are
Refrigerator
basically
goes out. Yeah.
having to fix everything yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and she's gone. Like I mean,
Yeah.
is she helping in any way?
No. No. I mean, because beforehand, she she didn't work, so I was pretty much taking care of the
So sole
finances in
income,
the house.
one
Yeah.
income. Okay. So
Yes.
she was a stay-at-home wife.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Was that something you both decided, or that was something that was like y'all knew that that's what you wanted? That's the kind of life you wanted beforehand.
No, actually, like we did. There was times when like she had worked at one point and you know ended up quitting. Uh, I think we found it just kind of worked, especially since we were having like we had our daughter at the time she was young, as opposed to having to um, find childcare.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
That
I heard
we would just
child
kind of stay
care,
home.
child care payments like that. Child care bill is crazy.
Yeah, I did like it when we both worked because again, like financially, like that was really like great. Like we were able to get everything like paid for and maintained. It's like, oh my God, we actually have some overhead. So like when all that switched and she stopped working, it was like we're just gonna have to make it work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so during selling the house, and were you served divorce papers at this time?
No, not at all. That's what I'm saying. Like, uh, at this point in time, we're still not even like talking divorce.
Okay, she's just gone. And when did that
hmm
started kind of creeping into the conversation?
So after some months have passed, and I'm asking like, so, what's the status on things? Like, how are you feeling? When are you planning on coming back? Are you coming back at this point? Because not really hearing too much from you, and I'm not hearing anything about you returning.
Mm. Y'all, so it's y'all just talking about different things, and you're like, there's an elephant in the room, gets growing bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like,
Yes, yes,
are
yes,
you
yes.
coming back? What's going on here? Okay, so how long did
So,
that last?
again, pretty much all throughout winter and spring. So like January, February, March, April, um, shoot, what else? Yeah, pretty much like the winter and springtime. Finally get the house sold, right? So I move into an apartment by this point in time. I'm still now trying to reach out to figure out what's going on. I'm not getting response. So like kind of the light bulb is clicking on in my head. So I decide to take a trip to where they are, up to the completely different state. So I'm saying like, hey, I at least want to like come up, talk, see the kids, so forth. I'm coming up there this date. Um, Let me know
Mm-hmm.
if you're available. I get no response back.
Mm.
So
You just trying to see your kids and see your wife
yeah,
at the time, and she just ghosts you.
yeah. So like I know where she was like, or where she told me that she was staying at the time. So I was like, all right, I go up here uh to try to make something happen. Like let's sit down, let's talk, let me see the kids. And like the beautiful part about this is that, so remember like how I told you growing up, my dad wasn't really around.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up pretty much raised by my mom. As I grew up later in life, I started to develop a relationship like with my dad. And
Okay.
like we would talk on certain things. And me going up there, I'm talking to him. Like I'm asking him for like advice in the midst of all this. Like, hey Pop, like this is what's happening. She's kind of gone. Um, like I don't know what I should do. And I'm telling him that, I'm gonna go over because she's at her dad's house. And so like it's one thing like everybody's family is there to support, understandably so. But I didn't want to just go by myself.
Right.
So my dad is like, you know what, son, like I'll go with you. So like that really helped like bring me and him even closer because in my greatest moment of like of fear and struggle, my dad is there to like help support me and really like be there for me in these situations.
Mm.
So me and my dad, drive up. We go up like a 3 hour drive to her dad's house, and she's not there. Kid's not there. They're like, we don't know where she's at. We don't know where they are.
Mm.
So you know, we're just sitting down having a conversation with them for a little bit, with her dad and everybody, try to understand like where they are. Needless to say, we didn't get in contact with them. Like I didn't get a chance to see them, speak with her, anything. So I think I was up there for like 3 days. So within 3 days' time, I hear nothing. I end up flying back, and that's when I was like, that's the last straw.
Mm. Wow. So at this point, how long had it been since you seen your kids?
That was in August actually, because it was just before like my son's birthday. So at this point, like about 8 or 9 months have passed.
8 or 9 months since she left, and it turned from separation for a time to, I don't know when you're coming back. You try to go up there to see her and the kids to get some clarity on some things. Communications are starting to break down, and uh, you so nobody nobody knew where she was. I mean, do you think they were telling you the
Nobody was
truth?
telling me. Nobody was telling me.
Okay,
So
so you think they were kind of lying to you?
yeah, I mean, like again, family protects each other.
Yeah.
That I understand. But in my mind, I'm still like, but you got to keep in mind, we're still a family here. Like who's protecting this family?
You be listen, as you know, an experience, and I have experienced myself. And I mean, there's so many, like, I mean, what is Matthew 19? Jesus says, "What God has brought together, let no man separate." And no man, I believe, includes family, because
Yeah,
sometimes, like you said, the family sticks by their daughter or their son. So if you, even if you try to confide in them in with some issues you're going through in your marriage, you and your spouse will have fixed everything, or y'all got over it, but the parents don't know that y'all got over it, or the parents are still feeling some type of way about it, and you two are good, but they're still harboring that anger towards you. And so, they probably were protecting her and not. I mean, it is kind of messed up because y'all had kids, so um, you know, unless there was like any abuse in the relationship, I don't see why family wouldn't at least allow you to see your kids. Uh,
yeah.
so
And I think, like you said, for like that very same, like I don't talk. Like I just try to deal with stuff myself.
mhm.
So I mean, even me talking to you now, like I'm not like the social butterfly,
No,
man. Like I
no,
pretty much
you
stay to
fly under the
myself.
radar, and you just be chilling.
So
So all right,
yeah.
so you fly
I
up
get
there.
home.
You get home after a failed
Yeah,
trip.
I get home, right? And at this point, so now I'm contacting attorneys to figure out like what do I
What are
need to
your
do,
rights? Yeah. How
right?
did that process go?
And I this is how I recognize I did not know my rights, like really at all. Um, because you don't think that you would need to. Again, who goes into marriage thinking that they're gonna get divorced and have to deal with all this stuff?
Right. I mean,
So
honestly, a number of guys do. I mean, I my ministry, I
I wasn't
minister.
one of those.
Yeah, yeah, I minister to a lot of young single men, and a lot of them talk, especially in the black community. A lot of them, talk about these things, and that's why prenups are big right now. So, but you're right. Uh,
Yeah,
we don't know our rights, and
right. But I feel like, since that time, like a lot has changed. Like there's more YouTube channels talking about it. There's more like
yeah,
men's channels and things. Like all that was kind of like budding at the time, but it's definitely not as popular as it is now. Like you
right.
can find tons of channels and stuff now where people are talking about like men's rights and how to like help men and just understand like women and things like that. Whereas before, like all those channels didn't exist.
Yeah, and I'm not a big proponent of a lot of those channels. I mean, I watch
Yeah.
most of them, but a lot of it, their response, their solutions are wanting, in my opinion. But they are talking about real issues, and uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So how did those initial discussions with attorneys go? It was just kind of like, "Hey, bro, USOL."
No, that's actually not the case. I really started breaking down the timelines and things that was happening with the attorneys, and they were really just kind of being like blunt with me, like how much time has passed? And I was like, right now we're approaching 8, 9 months. And they're like, you need to, actually, it was like 7 or 8 months. Anyways, they're like, you need to probably think about your options because you don't have a lot of options left. They were like,
Mm.
once they have been out of state for X amount of time, then that means that they're no longer residents in the state.
Oh wow.
And they were advising me that, this could be the intent or the goal all along. And if she were to file divorce papers upon you, she could be just waiting you out. If this happens, now all your legal troubles are out of state.
Wow.
And I was like, what? Like,
Wow.
explain this some more. And it turns out that seemingly like they were right.
Mm.
So I end up proceeding to like initiate divorce papers to find out that there was already papers being drafted and executed out of state, like the attorneys were saying. At
Wow.
one point in time, I'm dealing with two different attorneys in two different states because I had to get the other um, divorce proceedings like thrown out because I didn't get served those papers first.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask. I was just gonna ask that. I mean, divorce is not a proceeding that you can just, at least I'm not a family law attorney, so I didn't think you could process a divorce out of state without even the husband knowing. Unless there, like I said, unless there's some abuse or violence or something. But even then, like you still need to get served. You still need to have court appearances, all that. So that
Yeah,
had
I never
okay.
got served. Um, like there was so many things were like frustrating me out of this whole ordeal. Uh, it was a complete breakdown of like the process and the system. Like again, I didn't get served. Um, at this point in time, I later find out that like child support is being initiated when we haven't even like finished off divorce. But I'm thinking that it's from like local state. It's out of state that's doing it. So
Wow.
I'm fighting off a divorce case out of state to get them to throw it out so that it can focus on the one in state. So fees are just coming up all across the place.
Mm.
Trying to figure out how to pay this attorney, how to pay that attorney. I'm like borrowing money from people, anything I can do because it's like I have to do something in order to get like my kids back.
Mm.
At this point in time, now it's like October. Son's birthday is passed, daughter's birthday is passed.
Haven't
Like
seen them.
time is no, time is moving.
Wow. So there is two divorce proceedings, one in a state you've never lived in or you don't live in, and one in your state filed by you, and you were trying to get that one canceled. And then in the midst of that, there is a child support case out of state.
Yes, man.
Wow.
That's the thing that took me out was like the child support on top of that. And like, they don't ask, they just take.
So when you were going through the child support, they sent you a notice that the judgment has been filed against you, or you have to appear in court.
They I ended up getting a notice that they were taking, like period. And I
Oh,
spoke to
like
my attorney
garnishing.
about this. Yes.
Oh,
And I was
gosh.
asking my attorney, like, how is this even happening? He was like, they should have
Oh,
given you a notice or something beforehand. I was like, I never received a notice.
no notice, just your check started diminishing.
Yes.
Wow. So they went directly to your employer,
Yes.
and your employer didn't
Yes.
let you know?
No, I ended up getting a letter from Department of Revenue and I think also a letter from my employer, like within the same week that I'm about to get garnished. So let's say you get a letter on Monday, you get paid that Friday, you best believe it's getting garnished then.
Wow.
So and that's what I mean. Like there was such a breakdown, and like so many steps were missed. I ended up going to the Department of Revenue. I was talking to different like clerks down there and things, and the reps, and I'm asking them, like, how is all this happening? What do I need to do? Like, I don't even see how this is possible. Like, we're still in a divorce case. There's been no final ruling or anything. Like, isn't all this supposed to be done through the divorce? They're really not telling me a whole lot. I did not understand or know that all this was happening from another state. So now there's two child support cases. There's one that's pending with the divorce, and there's another one that is already like light years ahead, proceeded from another state. And again, I thought it was one and the same. So I'm asking them all these questions, and I felt like even the department was kind of like waiting me out because you have a certain amount of time to like contest these things, and you can go down there and ask them and say, "Hey, I need help. I'm trying to understand this, or what do I need to do?" But unless you say like, I want to file a motion for this, or I want to, I, I forget what the magic phrase was, but they
It's
literally
definitely a
told me
magic phrase. It was
there is
legal
a
stuff.
magic phrase. You have to say it this way. If you don't, you can say, I'm trying to understand and help. They won't like stop it. The lady ended up telling me when I went down there, she said, you could have wrote this on a napkin and we'd have had to like taken this into consideration to stop any proceedings until such time. And I was like, if you look in all your history records and all this, right, you see I've been calling people repeatedly and no one told me this until now. And she looked and she's like, well, I do see that you've spoken to different reps on the phone. They've been following up with you. Unfortunately, at this time, since you've already passed the deadline and the garnishments are already happening, there's nothing we can do. And I sit back like, you don't understand what you have done. Number one, I don't have finances to pay for all these attorneys. Number two, like now, like how can I proceed to like fight back to get my kids back if I can't even pay for a decent attorney? So I'm thinking back like this is the remember the game Street Fighter?
Hmm.
Remember when one of the characters would do his uppercut? I was like, this is the uppercut move to like take
Send
me
you,
out because
yeah,
I
send you to the next
yeah
to the
yeah
next level. Yeah.
yeah
Wow.
I don't I how can I proceed here? So
Wow.
at this point now, since we are actually in divorce proceedings, um,
Which
she
one?
she has to come back. So I finally got the one out of state like tossed out, right?
Okay. Okay.
After again two separate attorneys, they looked and they was like, okay, we have to toss this one out because there's another proceeding case in the state that I reside, and it looks like that the residency should be applied to the current state.
Right.
So I was like, whew, at least
Okay.
that's one down.
Yeah. Thousands of dollars later.
Yes, yes, thousands of dollars later. I mean, like I'm taking borrowing from 401k. Every place I can borrow from is what I had to do.
Mm.
So now she has to come back, and she also brings the kids back um, for like hearings. During these hearings is the first time I had like to see my kids, and it had been at this time like a year and some change.
Mm. Wow. Seems like there's a presumption, especially when like a woman is filing all these proceedings of child support and all this, there's a presumption that there's some type of nefarious behavior some bad behavior on the on the man's part, like the
Oh,
father's part.
yeah. No, I see those type of comments stuff. They like, oh, get him, he cheated. Nah, I wasn't out here cheating or anything like that, man. Like,
Yeah, and it's like because I bring that up because it's like that seems to be the way they were treating you. They were treating you like you were an evil man that was abusing her, abusing the kids, and it's just conversations broke down between you two. There was some miscommunication as far as solutions, and then well, actually, she probably had planned on this, from the beginning, leaving for a certain amount of time and not coming back, and then filing proceedings and all this, and you're just getting attacked from different ways. Divorce proceeding that you weren't privy to or given notice for, child support
yeah.
that just started taking your money out of nowhere, and wow. So
So yeah, that's what I said. I definitely was not up on the legalese of all this proceedings and just how it all works. And it's unfortunate, but I think to your earlier point, I do recommend that, men understand that young men that are, thinking to get divorced or not divorced, but married and so forth, understand all the ins and outs of it and understand it for the state in which you live because each state is different.
yeah, yep, that's very true. And family law courts, one thing I know, normally their rulings stand. So when the family law court makes a final judgment on family law issue, I mean, you could appeal it. I mean, which means you could try to get it overturned, changed, but for the most part, that when they were reviewing what a family law court did, the court of appeals is basically like whatever they did was right. We're just looking to see if
Yeah.
there's any glaring, in your face, really bad mistakes that the family court made, or else we're not going to change it. So yeah, you're right. Knowing your rights is extremely important. And
So yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, all this is happening. Like I'm still. I mean, there was times when I'd be looking at myself like, why am I doing anything? Like, why am I working? Why am I um trying to just maintain standard of life at all? Like, because for for me, and I think maybe for like a lot of guys, like again, we are in that provider mode. So like, there's there's no one around but me. So I'm like, who am I providing for? Like, I don't need much. You know what I mean? I feel like all the stuff that I would be working for was like for the family. If it's just me, then I can
Right.
greatly reduce. So
You kind of felt like you lost your purpose as a man.
yes, yes, that's like the best way to put it. Like what's the use?
And when a man
So
has no purpose, he has no hope.
that's what I think was like really starting to affect me, and I was trying to like fight it off. And that's why I think it's so important that you have people that you can like talk to and socialize with. And again, like I said earlier, I'm not really one to talk. I'm not a social butterfly, but that really helped to change me internally. They're like, you know what? I can't be like this. Like I need people. I need to talk more, and it really is helpful. And that's really the kind of thing and the mindset that's helped me to, even like agree to do this because don't go through stuff by yourself. And you
Yeah.
could be an instance where, you know, you're going through the worst. You need to find somebody to talk to, or somebody that's going through something. Be somebody that they can talk to. You know, be a ear to them or a support system because it really just showed me how much more like we're connected to each other and how much more we need each other. Like I said, I started having more conversations with my dad, like my friends, and it was like, let me be also a better son, a better friend to others, because you never know what people are going through and dealing with in life.
I didn't. I mean, because I think that was kind of when you and I started talking more at work.
Yeah,
When you telling me all these things, and then I would run into you, and I would ask for an update and things like that.
yeah,
And you'd be amazed um, what camaraderie and what fellowship comes through struggle. And that's
yes.
uh, but we do have a comment positioned for millions. Longtime subscriber. She says, and she's also an attorney. I don't know what state she's in, but she's
Okay.
she's also an attorney. So it says, I missed the first half of the stream. No worries. Did the gentleman discuss how he chose his wife? I don't know if you want to elaborate on that. Like, I guess uh, basically, maybe how did so were any of these traits that you started seeing during the divorce proceeding, were they existent in the dating phase? Was there anything looking back you like, oh, okay, well, I should have learned, or I should have uh, saw this coming based on these things that I saw in the dating phase?
Yeah, I think to answer both questions, like, how did I choose my wife at the time? And I say I've always kind of grown up like spiritual, like I was in church like a lot as a kid, and even like now I still try to make sure I maintain going and attendance and things like that. So I would talk to God, like whether I'm just walking around town or like driving around in my car or something, just walking down the street, like I'm talking to God about it. So in that, I was talking to God, like, God, is this something that I should proceed with? And based off of, my walk with God and that fellowship and that communion with Him, the response I received was like, yeah, proceed. And that's how, I ended up going forward in that marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to your point or your question about certain things, yeah, like I think there's personality traits and things like that I noticed um in the beginning. I just never thought that, some of that would be directed at me.
Right. Sorry. My camera is losing to the iPad. So anyway, man, I ain't gonna lie to you. That is pretty scary. Um, Speaking to God about this woman, and believing that He said proceed, and I do believe He did say, like, I see. One of my things is God advises in the marriage sphere. He can't force anybody to do anything. Like, He can't
Right,
force
right,
us to no longer sin anymore. He can't force us to um, love Him. He can't force us to love His Son Jesus. And there's no way that after you get married and all these things that, like, God is involved with divorce. I mean, He can be involved in, like, helping, cope and things like, but He hates divorce. He hates
right,
divorce. And so normally, like the world, like life, we mess things up as humans based on our sinful nature. And so, um, but we talked about the child custody. So during this time that you got the other divorce proceeding thrown out, um, and you started, uh, got to see your kids for the first time in over like almost a year, over a year. What kind of like to put a bow on this uh, side of it? How did things kind of continue? Were you still on child support during that time? And but how did that kind of work itself out?
So again, at this point, now there's so when the judge, was made privy to the fact that like, I mean, the kids hadn't seen each other for like a year and some change, she was like, nah. Judge was like, this cannot continue. She's like, whatever time, um, if the kids are here right now, even for this proceedings, they must spend time with the dad. It is unacceptable for them to not have contact with him. So the judge kind of helped, facilitate those changes.
Well,
Um,
good. About time. It's about. Wow. Okay.
and
So
it was a new judge too, so like it was helpful because like I mean I don't know what happens over time, like maybe people get desensitized to things or whatever else, but I thank God that this judge was like, no, something has to this can't proceed like this.
and it was a female judge.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good. A lot of times people rail on female judges in the family law court, especially when it comes to men trying to get their kids or view their kids. But so here's a case where it was actually a female judge that recognized the tragedy of this situation and
Yeah,
forcibly. So that's good. That's really good.
because again, by this time we're laying out all the pieces, like text messages, communications, and everything like that, really demonstrating it. And she was like, I've gone through all the information, I've read both sides, and this is what needs to happen.
Right. Right. Um, all right. So you started being able to see your kids, and uh, you know, things kind of finalized. How long did it take to finalize everything?
Um, it took some months, a lot of back and forth. We tried like mediation. Um, they have like this app, like this Talking Parents app, where now they're making sure like the court is enforcing some type of communication, and they're able to monitor it. So there's not
Oh
just um,
wow.
like I just can't send a message and they get no response, or she can't just send a message and there's no response. The court now is looking at all this and they're saying any communication between the two must happen in um this sphere, this platform,
Mm,
so that we can monitor what's happening here as well.
I didn't know. I didn't know that existed. So what is it?
Yes.
What is it? It's a.
It's like a social media app, but it's set up, I guess, by the court. It's called Talking Parents, and it helps to like facilitate like communication between the two parties, especially I would say during a time of divorce where people have struggled to communicate.
Good, good. Wow. Okay. I like that. Because, like you said earlier, the communication between you two was completely destroyed. I mean, it was just
Yeah,
seemingly she did not want to talk to you. Um, she's just, and in general, that would be okay. But specifically in your situation, being married with kids and property and all these things to unwind, having an ex spouse not willing to communicate sounds horrifying because with all the things you'd have to do.
yeah, definitely
So
difficult, man.
during all this and kind of towards the end, what, especially when you said, you kind of lost purpose for a bit, like who are you providing for? Uh, in general, what were your thoughts on marriage during this time?
Yeah, I was straight up like, I'm not doing this again. It's like that's a wrap. Never no more. Um, you couldn't find me in that again. I think that, like, I was like, why,
Yeah.
why? Um,
As anybody
and
would uh, attest to or agree with you, especially going through this. So okay.
so yeah, like I said, so at this point, um, again, I'm still like going to church. I'm trying to hold on to all of the parts of God that I can like hold on to, but I'm angry, bro. Like every day. So I have to change up like even how I'm participating in church. So like I was always taught you don't play with God.
You know
So it's
what?
like no, you don't play with God.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So it's like being that I'm so frustrated and like angry with things, I'm sitting myself down from this ministry. I went to different like leaders and things like that, and it's like I need to take a step back
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z because I
It's
gotta
important.
get me together.
Right. Right.
Um,
Um. So you stepped down from church leadership, but did you step away from like community, church community?
no, I would still go,
Okay.
but now I'm just amongst the congregation, but like
Yeah. You
I'm
don't have
not involved in any type of
responsibility.
ministry.
Right.
You're right.
Right. Was your ex-wife also in part of church ministry?
Yes.
Oh
So the
wow.
same.
Wow.
So
So
it's like, people knew who we were. It's not like, we're just a face amongst the crowd, and then people would notice when she wasn't there.
right.
So like that was hard too. Like I'm constantly being reminded and asked, like, so where's your wife?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so all this is just having like a bombardment upon my mind. So again, I'm trying. I'm like, God, I can't deal with this.
Yeah.
It's like too much.
Church folk be all up in your business. They do. They do. Even when you're not married, every single time is, oh, did you find your wife? Did you find your wife? Did you married yet? Oh, we got this new person. We got this new girl coming into church. So yeah, and I can see how that when you go through some kind of trauma or tragedy, even like a loss of a loved one, uh, the more people checking in on you and asking about it, that could be annoying. When I lost my mother earlier this year, it I had a lot of people everywhere asking me about it, wanted to know what happened and all this, and
Yeah.
it does not help. Um, so, never doing this again.
Yep, that was my stance. It's like I'm not never doing this again.
All right.
So
What are your thoughts on
now
marriage now?
I say now, like, no, marriage is not for the faint of heart. But if you understand the concept of marriage, not what TV says about marriage, um, not necessarily what you saw, but understand what marriage is, what the Bible says about marriage, how God constructed marriage, um, and what is it intended to do. Like, it is not just something where somebody is, if you're a guy, we hear these ideas like, oh, yes, it does say that your wife is your is there to help you, but she is of sound mind herself. You know what I mean? Like it's really two people coming to support each other because you can go through life with somebody or you can go through life by yourself. You choose which one you're gonna do because either way you still have to go through life.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that? That chord, the two chords are better than one. Or if I was talking about something
Yeah.
like that, like if
So,
one
a cord of
falls,
three is not easily torn.
right? Or in talks about like when two are walking together, if one falls, and the other one can help the other one
Right.
up. Like
Yep.
that's more so like how I look at it as we're here to help each other. We both have to walk through life. If you fall, I should be able to pick you up. If I fall, you should be able to pick me up. And it's that that type of partnership that how I look at it now, how I approach marriage. And like if you can't find somebody that's gonna partner with you to help you, then you better find look someplace else. Look for somebody who can. Otherwise, don't do it. If you're not willing to help somebody when they're down, then don't do it. But like I said, number one, understanding what is marriage, what is it intended to do? Because it's not there for someone to make you happy. You can't make someone else happy. You have to figure out how to be happy yourself and share your happiness with someone else, and hopefully they're sharing that with you. You may have completely different like interests. You still need to be happy. I need to embrace your differences and your interests, and you should embrace mine. I should still be able to be me. You should still be able to be you, and we figure out how to make those two things come together. And I mean, I'll say like I'm a quirky guy. Like I don't think of myself as just being like average or typical. So I would say being with me is probably like not typical, not usual. You know what I mean? Like if you are like, okay, he's just like a sports fanatic, and then like a lot of those stereotypes kind of don't apply to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
me neither. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, you're a man that wants to provide for his kids, wants to be for his
yeah,
kids and his family, and as a part of your purpose. So, that's what a good that's what a kingdom man, a biblical alpha male is supposed to be. That, on this channel, that's one thing we like to. That's the flag that we wave as a biblical alpha male. And you're right. Marriage. There's nothing in the Bible that says marriage is supposed to make you happy. There's nothing.
nope,
The idea is, God made the institution of marriage so that man wouldn't be alone, and He's going to make a helper suitable. And in Ephesians 5, Paul teaches that a man should present his wife as a radiant church without blemish, without spot or blemish, and he should nourish and cherish her. And a man who doesn't love his wife doesn't love himself. And so, yeah, marriage should not be simply the wife serving the husband. It is the husband also cherishing and nourishing. And so, some of the scholars, those words, mean like cherish is to adorn her outside and make sure she is. Obviously, it says without spot or blemish, and then nourish is to ensure that inside she's good. Like, she is not that you have to make her happy, but if she is, having a long day at work or whatever, and she wants she needs you, she wants to vent to you and things like that. Like that is, husbands are responsible to, not for, but we're responsible to our wives' ups and downs, and vice versa. And that's the beauty of marriage, like you said, that mutual benefit. That you fall down, I pick you up, and yada 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 yada. But I want to be more specific. Did you ever get married again?
I did, man, I did.
All right.
All that junk I was talking, I did.
Yes. All right. Everything you went through, all that craziness, and you were like, I'm not doing marriage again. I'm not doing this yet. Here you sit, married man. So why did you get married again?
Again, I have to put back like God into it. So like I said before, not a social person. I found myself really just kind of being in the house. I didn't go out a whole lot. And yeah, I more so talk to people, and like I said, maybe like on the phone, my dad, or like we'll talk to you in the office, or like we go out to the gym. And it's like I need to like get out more. I can't just be a hermit in my house all the time. Just go to work, come home, go to sleep, repeat, repeat, repeat. So I started going to like meetups, right? they would have like a group of people to just go out to a restaurant, something to eat, or whatever meetup events people have scheduled. You can have stuff for like music, whatever you want. You can find a meetup that you can like. I remember once I think I did that for Christmas because I was like, I don't want to just sit here in the house by myself on that first Christmas, um,
I bet
just
that was
alone.
rough.
So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So needless to say, I join meetup groups and I go out to one. And I'm sitting there, and again, like I said, I was talking before about I kind of don't want to just go to a place where everybody knows my name because you're gonna keep asking me questions. So I'm going to this place with total strangers. Like I don't really know anybody here, um, and I kind of liked that in a sense that nobody's gonna ask me
Yeah.
about like my personal life.
It's freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I
So
ran into you on one of these meetups.
yeah, yeah, you did. I was like,
Did I
what
run into
coincidence
you
here.
on the day that you met your? No, y'all had already knew each other. Y'all had, yeah, no. When you came to me, she came up to you. You introduced me to her as I think y'all were. I don't even think y'all were dating at the time. No, you. I think you were. Y'all were.
No, like
What
we
did
were
you say?
just like friends at the
Situational
time.
friendship. What did you say? You said.
No, no, no. What was the thing? Serious friends.
Serious friend. Let me tell you something. Your wife is a good woman. Because I after that, I had tried that in a dating circumstance. That didn't work for me. What does that mean? I don't know what that means, and and so you really this you know finding the woman, the right woman, the Proverbs 31 woman, the worthy woman at the right time really is key for marriage, and for any type of intimate fellowship. But anyway, back to you. So,
So I'm
um,
at this restaurant because of this meetup, right?
uh huh.
And there's again a bunch of people. Um, and I sit down at the table, and the person who ends up sitting across from me ends up being future wife. So again, here we are. I'm just figuring myself, I'll just go out here, have something to eat, have some small talk, and leave. As we're sitting there and we're talking, she's like, you know what? You look familiar. And I'm like, oh man, like where I'm not trying to
Uh
go any place anybody like knows me, recognizes me, or anything.
oh. Uh huh.
So so I'm like, well, where could she know me from? I'm like, maybe somebody from college or something. And then she asked me question number two, like, you go to church? And I'm like,
Here we go.
yeah.
Here we go.
She's like, that's where I recognize you from. And like she named like the church that I was going to. It's like that. I was like, yep, yep, yep. I that you probably saw me at church.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She was like, wow, it's just funny that like I remember you or like recognize you. It's a big church. There's a lot of people in there.
Right. Right. Oh, listen. These ladies. These. I don't know if she was single at the time, but these single ladies at church, boy, they be watching. They know. They know the men that be around. Mostly for good reasons, some for bad reasons. But yeah, so so that's interesting. So random meetup
But
with
she,
some.
yeah, but she didn't even like go to my church. Like she went to some other church. Like she wasn't even in like the same city.
Oh.
So
Hmm.
so it's not like, she would just be frequenting there like every Sunday or something like
Oh, so she randomly
uh
went to that church and saw you.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Uh and so you meet her, you just needed to get out the house because I mean as that study I mentioned earlier, Harvard Health Institute about marriage, like that's what happens. Men that are not married tend to be isolated and not go out, not do things, um, which is not healthy for men.
Right.
And so you meet
Yeah, I was just sitting
her.
there watching Netflix, man, and it's like I gotta get out. So go out. We talked. It was like a nice conversation. I think there's like the guy that was next to us. Like he was Jewish, so we're all kind of like talking religion and everything now. Like at this meetup. She's talking about church. We're talking about God, like, and just like life. Um, Meeting up to like divorce and all this other kind of stuff. Because found out she was also like divorced. Um, but I didn't think anything of it. From that, we left. Like everybody went their separate ways. I didn't even know that you could like message people in the Meetup app.
Mm.
So I ended up getting like a message through like, hey, it was nice conversation, nice meeting you today, and everything like that. And I was like, how'd this happen? Like, you can message people in this thing. I had my settings set that I can receive messages from people, but in any event, I was like, oh yeah, like it was nice talking with you too. We should go to another meetup. So then we just kind of started partnering up to go to these like meetup events. Like, hey, I saw this one. This one looks pretty cool. You want to go? Like, sure. So then we kind of kept on um like fellowshipping off of these like meetups
Y'all
and
like
just
started a good friendship.
yeah, started to get to know each other more. Started understanding like, so how was divorce for you? And this is how it was for me.
Yeah, you guys
And
connected.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
and from
that's
there,
amazing.
but understanding also like how divorce affects you like spiritually and like trying to encourage each other to get back stronger in the Lord and continue to pursue and so forth like that. So like there was many levels of which like we had like common ground and was able to, like I said, support each other,
Yeah, yeah, that's
especially going through similar things.
right. And during this time,
And
your divorce was finalized and all that, or about to be.
yeah, it was about to be. So
Okay.
then finally, like once it is, um, then it's like, yo, like we can like really like think about this and proceed.
Mm-hmm.
And we just kind of further, started going out. Then we became like really like serious friends. Um,
Listen, I'm trying to use that. I'm trying to use that. And it's like it's the expectation, and we talk about dating a lot on my channel, and I recently read a book about dating and how we just have even the Christians, even like people who have Jesus as active in their life, we want to date like the world. We want to date basically um, with Jesus, but on the sideline. But we basically want everything else to be similar to what the world does. Like we want to shoot our shot. We want, everything's got to be so quick up front. Like you don't even know the person and you're trying to, take them out to dinner and hang out at each other's houses and all this stuff. But that's not at all what I believe the Bible is showing that God wants us to do as far as marriage. Is one aspect in this book. It was like what he really made marriage for was companionship and fellowship. And that's what you kind of have to start with. That's what you have to uh, develop before anything dating, anything romantic, anything intimate even is discussed. So serious friends. Uh,
yeah, and that was like a lot for me because, um, like I said, how we learn relationships is really, I would say in this day and age, we really learn a lot of it from just like television, whatever we're seeing just on the media and everything like that. So like that whole concept, I had to tell my wife like of being like friends. I don't really know if I'd ever approached it that way of like we're friends first. Like you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, no.
That's just
Uh,
like how I didn't approach dating in that frame of
it
mind.
takes a
So it's like,
special type of
wow,
woman to accept that. Honestly, uh, like I told you, I've tried, and I get a lot of
yeah.
I don't know what that means. That doesn't make sense. Yada yada yada. But um, was it hard to trust again?
Oh my God, yes. Um, but that's why I think it really you just need to be upfront, like on where you are. And I'm before in the beginning, I would say to my wife, I'm trusting as much as I can, and we'll just have to like take it from there. Like and again, I would be hypersensitive to like anything that didn't look right or anything that didn't sound right or feel right or whatever. I'd be like, nah. So I would revert back into this. Nope, I'm still like I don't have to be married. Like I don't,
Mm.
and I would kind of fall back into that from these trust issues. Like I'll say today, even now, like trusting, I've gotten better at it a lot, but like that's still something that kind of like rubs me kind of sensitively. Like I want to be able to trust, and if you like mess with my trust, you really like messing with the core of me in a relationship.
So trust is it's definitely fickle. When it's broken, it's really hard to gain it back. And you know that was something that you were dealing with going into the new relationship, or uh, considering this other, your wife, for marriage. And you were fresh. The other stuff is not even really done yet, and I could, I just think it's an amazing blessing that you were able to open your heart enough to allow, this to happen, and allow this relationship to develop, um, and things like that.
Yeah,
So go
me
ahead.
too. And it goes back to like again the stuff that we were talking about, like what will marriage do? And it really helped. Even now, like I'm finding more things that I can reflect on myself and understand myself like better, and not just me, but like me in a relationship, because you can take all this time to develop yourself when you're by yourself, but that really, I'm not saying it doesn't help in marriage, but it really helps for you by yourself. There's only certain things that you can flesh out and get to learn about yourself when you're in relationship, when you're married. So like we have this idea that, I'm going to get myself perfect all to set together for marriage. False. You can do certain things. You can
False.
get yourself in shape. You can get
When
yourself
I
in
find out the
shape.
truth, I
You have
guarantee you that.
Yeah.
you can get like your finances together and better and stuff like that. But once you're like with somebody, once you're married, all that's gone. You're still starting fresh. Day one, you have to figure out how you are in a relationship. You have to figure out, do you communicate well? Are you a good listener? Because again, all those other instances, you don't have to worry about it. Who do you have to forcefully communicate with on a regular basis when you're working on yourself?
Mm, that's a good. That's a good. Whoa, that's especially. Oop. Hold up. Especially like for marriage. No, the longer I am single, the more and more I know like my marriage is going to be harder, because I am crafting my life exactly how I want it. My house, my schedule, my uh, things I do for fun. There's nobody I really have to consider to do whatever it is I want to do, and that may sound like a good thing, but to me, I do recognize that, like you're saying, all that is going to get torn down when I get married, and
Yep.
I don't even know how good of a communicator I am in that type of relationship. I think I'm a good listener. I think I have a way to empathize with someone else's perspective, but honestly, like you said, you don't know until you get into that. So,
And that's where
wow.
I go back to like, what does marriage do? Like that whole like iron sharpens iron. Like it's really helping to grind down and sharpen the points of you. It grind down the rough edges and helps to sharpen the parts that should be sharp because you recognize after the fact, like, oh, I'm not a good communicator. I need to work on that. Or, you know, I I do just pop off and say stuff sometimes. I need to work on bridling my tongue. Um, I either need to show more compassion or I need to stop being so this or so that. Like it shines the light and reflects the mirror that for the things you couldn't see as you're working on yourself by yourself. You will never see those things on your own. It takes for somebody to point them out, and you have to be in the right heart and the right mind to receive that. That's where again that whole thing of like God working on the heart and the two people comes into like great of importance. You need to be with somebody that you can pray and God changes their heart because you can't change them,
Right.
but God can. And they
Right.
need to be receptive to the presence of God and what God is able to do in them to help change them
Mm, that's
and
good.
to allow to you to open your heart so that God can change you too. Because that's really He's trying to perfect us.
Mm.
And there'll be
Speak.
some things that'll
That
never
boy
be
preaching.
perfected.
That boy preaching now. That boy
there'll
preaching.
be
I hear you, bro.
some
I see you. I see you. Yeah, nah.
some things just don't get
Yeah.
perfected without that challenge from someone
Right.
else. Because I would never do it if it
Right.
was just me.
So basically, one of your advice to young single men is to not try to perfect yourself and prepare yourself to get ready for marriage because it doesn't really work because you can only.
Or recognize that's all you're doing. You're just getting ready for it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, you should definitely work on yourself. Yeah, and yeah, I don't want to say that don't work on yourself, but you're not making yourself better at being married until you
No.
get married,
Right.
basically. Yeah, and bro, I'm gonna have a panel of husbands to do a live like this to answer some questions. Love for you to come back to the channel and bring some of your experience and wisdom as far as what your marriage is. I already got two guys ready and to waiting. So we'll get definitely schedule that. But what as a conclusion, what would you say is um, what would be your advice to young men fearing marriage?
Um, that God is love and what does it say? There is no you can't have fear and love God at the same time. God made marriage.
Yeah.
What we fear is what we don't understand about marriage and not understanding about that other person.
Right. Right. Yep.
And that's what we have to remember. And that's gonna be that's the part of marriage. So you're fearing the construct of marriage itself. It's unknown. You're gonna have ups and downs. You're gonna have to have things to work out. But once you get in your mind, that's what marriage is, and it's not Disneyland. It's not whatever else that has been placed on television. Um, then you can actually think about marriage and approach it, hopefully with I want to say with less fear, but just more of an understanding. So I think we're more so afraid of what we don't understand, including not understanding that other person. But that's the whole point, to learn and allow it to take its course and how it's supposed to help shape and mold you and shape and mold the other person. Don't give up because, you got into an argument. That's part of it. That's
Mm-hmm.
part of it.
Mm-hmm. And would
You
you?
decide you're going to stick with it.
Right. And so, avoiding this kind of a horror story you kind of went through in your marriage, well, like, what do you think a man can do going forward to not find himself in a situation like you were in.
I mean, first and foremost, still always stay close to God. Try to understand what direction He's leading you to. Um, but ultimately, He makes you make that decision. He's not gonna choose for you. If you choose sister such and such, you chose her. If you choose this other sister instead, you chose that one. Like, understand the responsibility that we have. We can't put it all on God, but we can ask God to lead us. Um, and then just try to take the time to understand yourself, like I said, and understand what marriage is and be patient.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you, Anthony, for taking the time to spend with us and to explain everything you went through. I mean, it was a crazy circumstance, no doubt, but you are married, and I know marriage is not about happiness, but dare I say you are happily married right now, and things are going strong. Much blessings to you and your wife.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. And the other thing, just to add to that too, like even with all this, I would say again, this is why we got to stay close to God because beforehand I had a lot of, like I said, anger, but even now, like God has helped to point out that that was a problem for me to the
Mm,
point where it's like now I found even a place of like forgiveness from my ex, and from that like it forgot to help me to try to figure out how to be like a better person even in the areas that I thought that I couldn't. Like that's opened the door for better like communication and being able to have more time and making it easier to have that relationship with my kids. Like you just have to allow God to allow to make you into what you're supposed to be.
mold you. Yeah.
And yes, yes. And I could have very easily continued to just harbor all of these like negative feelings. But it's like I don't want to be like that as a person. God doesn't want me to be like that. So even with that, to be able again to find forgiveness there, and that's allowed for a better relationship with my kids. It's allowing for better me being a better husband now. So I'm saying like just allow God to do what He's going to do and find forgiveness, find healing, find strength in Him. And yeah, all this stuff happens, but God knew it was going to happen in the first place. He knew all the things going to happen in our life. And He's like, I still need to get you to be this way. And I think you were asking me before, like, what type of scriptures and things like that really help. And I remember thinking that, He'll never leave me nor forsake me. All things will work together for the good of them that love the Lord. So it's like, yeah, even in the midst of all of this, something is still going to have to work together.
Mm.
Whether that's like God working together for the good to get things right in me, to get things right in the life of my kids, my wife, my ex. What God is working it all out, and that's what I have to continue to remind myself even now, um, and just let God be God and try to find Him and figure out to make sure that I'm making the right choices. Because again, the responsibility is on me, but I have to allow Him to guide me in those decisions.
Amen. Amen. Let God be God. And I think God's going to be God, but I think the interesting part is like let God be God for you. Like let
Yes.
him in. Like let him mold you. Let him, love you because people have a misconception of love and they think love is just, they just want God to pet them. That's what love is. It's just, oh, you're so great, you're
Yeah.
so amazing. You're so great just the way you are. And God is like, no, I see so much better for you. And sometimes, in James, I believe it's James 1, it says, count it all joy, my brothers, uh, all of the trials that you go through, because we know that trials produce endurance, which leads to hope. And
Yes.
so God uses trials to strengthen us, to grow us. Uh, and a lot of times, trials are brought on by our own actions and decisions and
Yep.
lack of trust and faith in Him. Uh, but then His grace is ever abundant. And at each point in any trial we're going through, we can always stop and turn around, repent, and face Him, and allow Him to do His magic. And I think that's what you did, which is why, you are where you are now in a much better space. And I mean, as someone who was your friend during this whole time, I know you were going through a lot, but from the outside, it seemed like during this time, things started elevating in your life. I mean, you got in shape. I mean, work started getting a lot better. You're even today, you're a very vital and integral part of uh, the work that you do, and having a new wife, and spend more time with your kids, I imagine. So it's like you look back at it, and where you were before everything happened and where you are now is kind of like different
So
level.
different.
So,
So
and
different.
that's what God does. So yeah. Well, thank you. We'll definitely be seeing you again.
Yeah, thanks
Um,
for having me. Yeah, I'll gladly come back, man.
yeah, it's. I think your testimony is going to really help a lot of young men uh, that are struggling with this idea of marriage, and the issue with some of those like channels that you had mentioned earlier. Like, it's great to have channels that talk about men, how help men be men, but some of their alternatives is sinful and
Yeah.
destructive. And that's one thing I'm trying to do. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this was, even someone going through a horrible marriage circumstance, there's redemption, and um, there's new life, and it is better than even the alternatives, because the alternatives to marriage for young men, most young men, all of them are crap, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, in my professional biblical opinion, it's not good. But all right, well, I think I've stolen enough of your Saturday morning. I appreciate it again. I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. Uh, Thank you for watching this video. If you have made it all the way to the end, make sure you let us know what you think. If you know of anybody who went through a marriage horror story, a redemptive story, leave it in the comments section. Don't forget to like and share this video with someone that you think it would be helpful for. My name is Zachary Carroll, aka Pastor Z. Y'all be cool. All right, sir. You have a good day.
All right. You too. Thanks.